Hello again, and it's time for another project. It's like time of year when the good old Grinch comes out, so we're going to do a little fun project today. Basically, we're going to scroll saw this one out on 3 different pieces of wood. The sections here that we're going to cut out, they'll be on 3.6mm. This circle with the go away will be on 5.5mm, and the backer piece, which will be the full piece itself, will be on 9mm. So we're just trying something a little bit different today. You could just cut it all out on one level, stick that to a board. Now my idea is to just get that again, cut out these fingers separately, all these top sections with a bit of scribble on them, and then we'll stick them down to the backer board once they're nicely painted the appropriate colours. Now normally you would stick your template down with painter's tape. For most people, not everybody, you would line that with your painter's tape, literally spray on some glue, stick your template down, and you're ready to start cutting this one out. You notice here there's a couple of pilot holes we need to drill. Basically, a pilot hole is an hole we need to drill in there to allow us to feed the blade through to cut out that middle section, and one there, and there's one in the letter A, and there's one there just for the Y. So we've got 4 little pilot holes to cut in, no big problem. But on this one for me, I'm just going to try something a little bit different, and I've gone with good old carbon paper or graphite paper, and you basically just pop that underneath and draw around it with a pen. I prefer a pen or a biro. You could use a pencil or whatever. That way, 1, you can use that template over and over again. 2, you've got none of the paper and none of the tape to peel off afterwards. Now the way I've done this, and I don't know if it's going to work, I'm hoping so. I've drew out the backer section, if I can just find it. Not that one, not that one. On the back of this one, I've just remembered. So there's our backer board there. That's our full size of our project. If I just put it down for you. So I placed my paper on there, bit of tape, carbon underneath, and just drew around the full outline. That has given us the backer board section. So that's a piece that all our bits will stick to. So that will be to cut out as a separate piece. Then for this, the bottom section, the go away section, I did exactly the same there. As you can see, we placed our template on, and I just drew around that bottom section. The idea that this will be 25mm, this will be 5.5mm, and that piece here will be slightly down, only 3.6, so not a lot. And when these fingers are on top there, they will be even higher still. Just give the illusion that he's actually behind the bauble or circle or whatever it's meant to be. So that's our second piece to cut out. So we'll do that exactly the same there, look. So we can cut that one out just the same. That will fit on top of our backer, should I say. Remember, drill those pilot holes there to feed the blade through. And finally, the face, which I've made a bit of work for myself. We could have quite easily just glued that onto there with the painted switch and the spray and started cutting that out. What I've done, it was nice and warm inside, and I've basically carboned every piece on like so. It looks awfully complicated at the moment in time, but once we start cutting all these out and then gluing them down, hopefully it will take shape nicely. The only thing I've got issues with is the eyes here. All that will be black inside all there around the eyes, so it might stand out nicely against the 2 yellow eyes. If not, we will actually cut out the black eyes itself. So I just basically drew pencil lines to make 2 eyes. So there will be our original eyes once we cut those out, and basically a red dot in the middle. If it doesn't look right, we'll come back and cut out some proper circle eyes. So we might see those, we might not. Okay, so there's all our bits, all nicely carboned out. So the idea now is just to cut it all out on a scroll saw. The blade for me personally, I like to use what they call a spiral blade. This is the Pegas number 5. Just got these delivered this morning, and those teeth spiral the full length of those blades. Doesn't need it on this project. You can use a standard straight blade pinned or pinless, no problem. But with spirals, we could start there, and this you just feed that round. With your other two blades, you'd have to come down, twist it, turn, twist, turn, twist. A lot of twisting and turning. So spiral blades for me. And like I say, the two other blades are a pin blade. They basically just have a pin on the end, and then you have your straight standard pinless blade. If you are going to purchase a saw, try and get one that takes pinless, or you'll be like me, I have to use these adapter clamps at both ends, and that literally just clips onto my saw the same way as the pin blades would. Okay, we'll do the backer piece first. So we'll set up our Pegas number 5 spiral blade in the saw, cut that out, and then we'll move on to the 5.5mm, and then we might change the blade, but if it's working out nice, we'll continue and do these 3.6. Okay, let's cut the backer out first. Okay, so we've got our Pegas number 5 spiral blade in the saw. You can see my adapter clamps at the top and the same at the bottom. We've got our ping ping sound. That's the sound you want basically. My tension lever's right at the back. On your new fancy saws, it's just a twist and turn here. But you make do with what you've got. Okay, like I say, we're going to cut the backer out first, and then move on to the go away, and then we'll start cutting out those individual pieces. Okay, there's our backer board, all nicely cut out. That didn't take too long at all, really. Those Pegas number 5 blades, so I didn't mess about with that. And you notice here, we've done the one pilot hole cut out on that one. We have 3 or 4 to 5 on the other piece. The only downside to your spiral blades, if I find a bit of sandpaper, you do get little fluffies, little fuzzies on the back. Really hard to see. But it's a matter of, especially on plywood like this, matter of seconds, and they're all nicely clean. So there's our backer board. We'll put that to one side, and then we're going to come into the next piece, which is the go away. You notice here, we've already drilled our pilot holes into all the sections that need to be cut out. Once that's all nicely cut out, it should fit on there nicely enough. Normally, if you want a perfect match, we want that circle to match in with that circle, you would do stack cutting and glue the two pieces together, and you could cut them both out at the same time. That way you'll have a perfect match. But something like this, we can make that fit near as it will, and you might just want a bit of sandpaper or a bit of tidying up at the end, but that's nothing to be overly concerned about. Okay, back to the saw again. We'll stick with the Pegas number 5 spiral blade. We'll basically cut this one out. Okay, there's our second piece cut out. So no problem with that one again. So far so good. I do find with these pegas spiral blades, the thicker the wood, the easier the cut. Now we're getting on to the thinner stuff, which is at 3.6. We will have to slow things down a bit and get quite racy on these. So there's more control needed the thinner the wood, if that makes sense. And we'll just do a quick check on that backer, remember. So there was our backer section. That was our first one. I still have this one to sand down. In fact, the fuzzies are they're quite worse on this smaller piece. You just see there, look, those fuzzy bits, but it just means there's a little bit more sanding required to clear the back section. But that's no problem. That's going to work out okay with us. So ideally, that wants to fit on there, somewhere near like so. Just roughly put it into place. If we go all the way around, we're not going to be a million miles away. Maybe a bit of sand in there, maybe. But the rest of it seems to be more or less in place. Maybe a little bit off that corner there. But we can clamp these two pieces together and just give them a nice sanding down. So far so good. So there's our first two bits done. Now we're back to the scroll saw for the third and final time, just to cut out all the missing sections. And remember, we still have our template because we use carbon paper. So what I like to do is put that to one side, and as we cut each piece out, we can just fit it in place as a temporary, just to make sure we've got all our bits. Then obviously all those bits will eventually fit on here. Okay, back to the saw again. Okay, so we've done all the cutting on that 3.6mm. Everything cut out really nice. We didn't have any issues, even on the pieces that were a little bit delicate. And as I've cut each piece out, what I like to do is basically first mark the back of the piece, just a bit of scribble or something. That just helps when you come to paint it. The last thing you want to do is start painting the wrong side when you're going to put it on your template. And all those fuzzies have been removed. No fuzzies on those. Just sandpaper on the full piece. And I like to just round those edges off slightly, just to take that lip off. You will find with your plywoods, if I just get near enough, too much sanding and you'll have that yellow line coming through. Remember, plywood's made of different layers, so you're basically sanding off the top layer to the next one. That's not going to bother us. We're going to paint this one with some nice, good, solid colours. And remember our template, we've kept the original paper because we carboned this one out, traced it. So we can put our little bits on there and they more or less fit how we want them there. I'm still debating about the eyes here. I've done out the centerpieces, the little centers of the eyes. They took some doing. Surprised we never lost those. They will be painted red and we'll drop them in onto that black backer board, should we say. If it looks cool against the yellows, we'll just leave it. If not, I'm sure I can find those two eyes somewhere. We'll keep those to one side should we want to cut them out and drop them inside there. But personally myself, we might just get away with that. Okay, so there's all our template bit done. Remember, we have that section there to go underneath there, and there's also that section there to go underneath there. Okay, I'll just put this together as a mock-up just so we can see what we're going for, and then we'll start looking at the paint side of things. Okay, so there's our overall finish that we're going for, obviously once we've painted and the rest of it. So just a couple of more fingers to pop on, and that's it. They've all gone on near enough what we wanted. If I can pick it up without losing anything, you can see from that the face itself is just slightly down from that centre large ring piece. Personally myself, 9mm might have gone even better just to raise it up slightly, but that's plenty enough for what we want for this project. So we're just going to paint all the pieces as we need them. We can obviously remove this section here. We want that white going in there, and then a black edging, and all the full black piece for the backer board. You've got the greens, the yellows, and a bit of red for the top section, and black for that remaining section, and then those green fingers. I have googled the image, and the green does vary depending where you're getting your Grinch image from. Sometimes it's more like a limey green than it's a dark green. So I'm going to play about with Painter's Touch paints today. These are nice paints. I've used acrylic paints on plywood before, but I've had to do 2 or 3 layers. This is a nice thicker paint. There's the old Painter's Touch. If we can get one in focus here, there we go. And hopefully that'll be a nice, stronger colour. Bit of yellow for the eyes there, obviously. We've got that kind of green. We'll see what it looks like. We can always add a bit of white and lighten it up. And we've got plenty of black and the white to go at for the rest of it. And I believe there might be a red in here somewhere. Just rummaging through. Bit of red there for the at the top. Okay, right, we'll go indoors where it's a little bit warmer. Paint this all up and then we'll have a look and see what it looks like. Okay, there's all our pieces nicely painted up. What I tend to do with these smaller sections, and remember you could spray this just as easy if that's your preference. I just like to use a brush and paint, is get some tape, the full length of a piece of scrap, just tape it off at either end. I tend to put a bit in the middle as well there. Stick your pieces down and you can paint them all without messing up too much. Imagine the centre of those little eyes there, look how small they are. You try hold those while you're painting them. And the same with these other pieces. And just take your time when you peel it off. It does come off eventually. I've removed all these already once, so they do come off, but not as easy as those ones. So just take your time. Don't go breaking any. That just makes it easier for painting. But obviously, if you prefer to spray, you could do exactly the same thing and just stick them down as a temporary measure. Now, the next stage for me, we're going to put a bit of varnish on this. You know it's coming. Does it need it? I'm not too sure. These are gloss paints, and you could quite happily just leave them as they are. But for me personally, I just feel like I've finished the project if I spray a bit of varnish on. But it certainly doesn't need it. If you want to leave it like that, that's fine. Just be careful with your varnishes on the colour white. They do say it tends to yellow in time. Now, I don't know in time, that could be 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. I have no idea. This will obviously only come out once a year, so a fun project. I personally just spray everything that's in sight, and I've never had any issues so far. So I'm going to give it a quick going over, basically just so it darkens that black down, gives it a bit of a shine. Like I say, does it need it? I don't know. And obviously when we come to glue it all together, that will go on there like so, and all the other bits will fit into place. For gluing wise, just Loctite today, and I like to incorporate a bit of wood glue in between. Basically just getting one of those, and it is just a simple case of dab 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 dab, and the same with the other one, and that just gives you a bit of extra time to get it in place. Personally, any super glue will glue these down, I'm sure. Okay, so before we glue it all down, just a quick spray with my 151. Seems to be quite popular with me at the moment. And then we'll go back inside where it's nice and warm. It's quite fresh here in the UK today. I've had a heater on in the corner, and I turn it on to keep the place warm, but I turn it off when I'm talking to you guys, so you might even see my breath coming over there. That's how cold it is today, so we're not messing about with these today. Okay, that's it. We'll go back indoors and glue this one together. Right, so just the last piece to glue in. So just a simple case of, like I say, I like to use this wood glue. Probably doesn't need it, but that just gives you a little time to wiggle your piece into place before that super glue sets. A couple of dabs of that, and then we'll come same with our Loctite. Like so. Good strong stuff, you don't need a lot. And on a few projects, I've certainly glued my fingers together. Okay, so last piece, be a bit careful, turn it over, and we'll just slot that into place, like so. Drop it down there, just enough time to move it about, that looks fine, press it in, and that's it. That's all we've done on all the other pieces. Okay, let's go back down to the shed, and this little project is finished. Okay, that's it. This little project is finished. So it's the Grinch. Imagine it at 15 inches by 11 inches across. We cut it out on 9mm, 5.5mm and 3.6mm plywood. So that was something a bit different, using all those different thicknesses. It's all glued in nicely, and that's worked out fine. Nice fun project for this time of year. He'll no doubt get put away, and we can bring him out year after year, all being well. Now remember those eyes, I'm quite happy with the way they are. We did have our little extra ones there cut out, ready for cutting out, but we didn't use them in the end. So I'm quite happy the way they are, just with the black as the backer itself, the eyeball side of things. So we cut it all out on those 3 different woods with our Pegas number 5 spiral blade. This was just my choice of blade. Any straight blade would cut this out just as easy. I just prefer to use spirals. And then we came in with those Painter's Touch paints. These are great little paints. I've used these right from day one. We can get one in focus. Again, it's getting a little bit harder to get hold of them now. I've tried different suppliers. So either Painter's Touch or acrylic paints. Obviously, if you wanted to spray, you can spray. And then we glued it all together. Just before that, a bit of 151 varnish. It just makes a slight difference. You would have got away without it, but for me personally, I just do like to spray a bit of varnish on my projects, like so. And obviously when we glued it together, personally, any super glue will do. At the moment, I'm using Loctite. I've used different brands before that, and a bit of wood glue in between Does it need that? I don't think so, but it doesn't matter. It won't do any harm for putting it on. And that's it. We are finished. The Grinch, cut out on 9mm, 5.5 and 3.6mm plywood. Painted with Painter's Touch paints. Thank you very much for watching. Oh, and while we're here, little hanger on the back. They work fine. And it hangs no problem. Okay. Thank you very much for watching.